everybody, today we're going to make a fun project from the Kimberbell Happy Place Embroidery Projects collection. These projects are currently available as a CD. I will link that in the description box below. There's a number of choices with designs and projects and sizes. Today we're going to be making the rope coasters. If you have the Happy Place Embroidery Projects, instructions are on page 20. I've selected the little bird design. We're going to make a simple rope coaster with the bird embroidered in the center. All my sticky notes on here are just to help me get everything set up. They always include thread colors. Here's my thread conversion. I'm using Floriani threads. If you have the same threads, you can grab a screenshot of that. I have all my supplies ready to go. We're going to make a set of 4 coasters today. These would make great gifts. If you need a last minute gift, this is something you can do. I've got my Kimberbell project rope. This is already open. You don't need a lot of project rope for the coasters, so if you've got half a bundle, you should be fine. I have all my threads here. This is in the butterfly rope bowl. I'll link that below too. They fit in that. You're going to need some shape form interfacing. I've already cut all of my fabrics, so everything is cut to make 4. One thing I am going to do with this design is I'm going to shrink it a little bit, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm doing that so I can fit all 4 in one hooping and make a set of 4 coasters as quick as I can. We're going to be working with the 5x7 hoop size today. I made just a couple of changes since I'm shrinking the design and I'm making my coasters a bit smaller. My shape form I cut at 5.5 inches square. My base front fabric also 5.5 inches square. The base back 5.5 by 7.5, and you need 2 of those per coaster. What I did was I took the 5x7 measurements for these things and I just reduced it by 1/2 inch because that's about the size that we're going to shrink the file. That keeps you from wasting any of your materials. Here's what I have picked out. So we've got our shape form. The front body fabric, I've got a nice white on white. They're just little dots and swirls. The solids for the back body and tail, I kept the same. The breast, kind of the front of the bird, light blue, and flowers pink. All of this came from scrap fabric. The fabric for the coaster base and the back is called Blossom by Christopher Thompson. It's a Riley Blake fabric. Here's the number for that if you happen to like this color. It's beige with little tiny flowers on it. And my solid fabrics came from these fat quarter bundles that I got with Fat Quarter Shop. Let's see, September 2023 and June 2023. I was a member of their Solid of the Month Club for 1 year. I thought I would try it out. That year they happened to do a bird lovers club, so there was always a picture of a bird with each of the bundles. The only fabric I used fusible on, and this is the Kimberbell fusible backing, is the front of the coasters. This is going to be the base. We're going to do all the applique and everything on top of that. I added fusible to that. For the coasters, I cut 1 piece of shape form. Sometimes there are projects using the shape form and rope bowls say to cut 2 pieces. Sometimes you cut 1 and then you make a base insert. These are coasters. I think 1 piece is going to be just fine. So I've got 1 piece of shape form for each coaster. And when we go to add our rope, we're going to do something fun today. We're going to use some colored threads instead of matching our thread to our rope. It's going to give your coaster a unique look, make it a little bit special. You're also going to need a medium cutaway stabilizer. I have a roll of Floriani medium cutaway. It came with one of my embroidery machines. I haven't used it up yet, so I'll be using that today. If you've got Kimberbell stabilizer, you want the Kimberbell medium cutaway. And if you're following along with your instructions, the bird design is on page 28 and 29. I'll be following all of the instructions for the thread colors as we go through and do the embroidery. I've got my medium cutaway stabilizer loaded in a 9.5 by 14 inch hoop. Hand tighten, screwdriver tighten. Let's head over to the machine. You're also going to need some paper tape today. I keep mine by my machine. I forgot to show that at the beginning. Make sure you've got your paper tape handy. I'm on a Babylock Meridian. Files are on USB. Let's bring up the bird file for this. You can see there's a lot of files with this. There's the leather tags, there's different size embroidery files, there's different size files. Here's the bird with an outline, no outline. You have a lot to choose from. For today, we're going to be working with the 5x7 bird that has the circle around it. I'm going to bring that up, hit set, and then I'm going to shrink it because if I don't shrink it, I can't get 4 in one hooping. And we're going to put rope around the outside. It'll be plenty big enough as a coaster. We're not going to shrink it that much. Size. There's a button right here. It shows all 4 arrows pointing towards the center. That's going to shrink it. I'm going to press it and hold it. That's as far as it will shrink it, but that's enough. That makes it 4.5 inches square. I'm going to grab it and bring it up here. We'll hit OK. Now we're going to duplicate it. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know we've got two ways to duplicate. We have a duplicate, whatever you want to call it, button right here. And then we have the border duplicate key. I like to use the border duplicate key because what happens when you do that is you work on all four at the same time. The regular duplicate will have you complete one, then do the next, then do the next. The border duplicate will have you do step 1 on everything, step 2 on everything. I think it's faster. We can add one below, that's fine. And I'm going to use these arrows pointing out, space it out. I'm going to make good use of the space in my hoop. And then I need to change it so it's going across. That's this middle button up here. And you can see the orientation of these change. I'm going to hit this button right here. Now I've got 4. I've got a little more space. I want all the space I can get. See how close together they are? That's okay. We'll be able to work with that, but without shrinking the design. I think they either don't fit or they did fit and they were right on top of each other. Let me center that a little bit because I'm picky. We're going to hit OK. Save it to your machine. That way if something happens, you have to turn off your machine, there's a power outage or anything, everything will be back where it needs to be. Let's hit embroidery. We're going to get started. You can see the little circle here. We're going to start with a base placement line. You want a neutral thread for that. This design uses the color cream. I'm going to put the cream color thread on my machine and start with that color. Cream color thread is loaded, and since we use that border duplicate key, it's going to do everything 4 times. This is a great way to get a set of 4 coasters done all at once. Great holiday gift idea. We're going to start with that base placement line. We've got our 4 circles stitched out. In the instructions, it says to use 2 pieces of base shape form. We're just going to use 1 today. If you were making a large rope bowl, you could certainly use 2 pieces. I do have videos showing how to make rope bowls. I'll link all of that below. It's actually sliding a little bit under the hoop there, but that's okay. You want to make sure to cover your placement line. You could probably cut your shape form a little bit smaller. I cut them 5.5 inches square. You could probably do 5.25. Get everything taped into place, and then we're going to stitch the tack down. I've got all 4 pieces taped into place. Let's go ahead and stitch out the tack down line. We need to trim everything that's outside of that tack down line. Get a good pair of heavy duty scissors. These are curved applique scissors, but they're pretty heavy duty. I'm going to use those. I've got all of these trimmed. If you cut the stitching, which I did in a couple spots, don't panic. We're going to be covering it with fabric, and it's going to have backing fabric, and there's going to be rope. If you cut through your stabilizer, grab a piece of paper tape and put it underneath and just keep on going. The next thing we're going to stitch out is the base front fabric placement line. Next, you want to grab your base front fabric. I've got 4 pieces, and I did put fusible on the back. You want to completely cover the placement lines. If you're working with 4 and a hoop like I am, just keep an eye on where one ends and another begins. You can see why I shrank the design a little bit. It helps everything fit. Get all 4 of them placed, and then we're going to stitch the tack down. Once these are tacked down, you want to go ahead and remove the tape, but we're not trimming any of the fabric at this time. We're going to go ahead and start on the embroidery and applique. We're going to start with dark green. We're going to stitch the leaves fill. Next, we're going to switch to blue-green, and we're going to stitch the tail placement line. I've got a thought on something. Let me show you. This is the design we're working with. If you don't do any of the placement and tack down and any of the fabric applique, if all you do is stitch the detail stitching, this would be what the bird looks like. This is pretty just like that. If you've got a nice fabric behind it and you don't have time to do applique, but you know somebody who loves birds, you could stitch it out just like that. I would just skip the placement and tack down for the applique and just move through and do the detail stitching. But we are doing applique. Switch to blue-green. We're going to stitch our tail placement line. Grab your tail fabric. I've put pieces of tape on them. You want to cover the placement line with your tail fabric. Then we'll stitch a tack down, and then you'll trim outside of the tack down line. I've got all of my little tails trimmed. Next is the tail decorative outline. Next, we're switching to aqua and we're stitching out the front body placement line. Got my front body pieces. This is that white with the dots. It's not a very thick fabric. I opted to not put fusible on it, and we'll see how that turns out. I think it's going to look just fine. Put all 4 of those down. Make sure you're completely covering the placement line. Then we're going to stitch the tack down, trim around the tack down, and then we're going to stitch the front body decorative outlines. All of that's in aqua. We're going to leave the aqua on the machine, going to stitch out the breast fabric placement line, then you'll place your fabric, tack it down, trim it, and stitch out the decorative outline. We're going to do all that in the color aqua, same as we've been doing, so I'll go ahead and run those steps together. You might have seen my hands in that one. There's a lot of fabric meeting right here. We've got the white, the light blue, and the dark blue, and there's a lot of tack downs right at that same point. I have a regular 7511 embroidery needle on, and it seems to be getting stuck. I'm actually going to switch needles for the rest of this project. I'm going to put on one of these super non-stick 8012 needles. They're a little more heavy duty, and I'm going to use this for the rest of my stitch out. I've got that new needle on my machine. Going to switch to blue-green. We're going to stitch out the back body placement line. Place the back body fabric, tack it down, trim, and do the decorative outline. The back body decorative outlines are all stitched out. We're going to pull our dark pink and our light sage. We're going to stitch the buds fill first, and then we're going to stitch the stems fill. The next thing we're doing is switching to, they call it dark peach, I kind of have a light pink. We're going to stitch out the flowers placement line. Grab your flower fabric, cover the flowers. I would tape these into place. You'll stitch the tack down, then trim, and then stitch the decorative outline. We're going to switch to, they say charcoal, I'm using dark brown instead, for the beak and the eye fill. I forgot to turn the camera back on for the flower center fills. Sorry about that. You can see that those have stitched out. You may have a jump thread between the eye and the beak. You can trim that out now or at the end. I'm going to take a moment and pull this off my machine and trim the little jump thread. The next thing we want to do is prepare our back pieces. You have 2 of these for each coaster. They're cut in a rectangle. The measurements were at the beginning. They're in the instructions. You want to fold them this way, like that. So here's the short edge, and then this is the long edge, and you're folding them with the right side out. So wrong sides together, and then you want to take that to your iron and press them. I have these all pressed. Each coaster gets 2. You want to place the top piece first, and you want the folded edge toward the center. You want them to overlap about 1 inch in the center, so you can kind of lay your fold at the center and then pull it down. Leave that there. Important to have the bottom piece overlapping on top of this piece. Make sure you've got that inch overlap. The fabric folds are in the center. These are folded wrong side together, and this lower base is on top of this one. That's important because when we turn these right side out, we put our rope inside the little fold on the bottom, but it'll be going the other way and it'll help us go the right direction when we're sewing the rope together. We need to make sure these are nice and secure because what we're going to do next is stitch a line that's going to go all the way around the outside. Tape it across the center. You can add some tape on the top and the bottom to secure. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. These are all taped. I still have the cream color on the machine. We're going to stitch the base tack down line. You probably saw my hand. What I was doing was, as it was coming around for the first time, stopping it before it hit the fold, making sure everything was nice and flat, and letting it continue around. We're done here at the machine. You want to get off all the tape, and we're going to take this over to the table. I'm at the table. I already started pulling off the tape. That's the first thing you want to do, is get rid of all the tape, and then we're going to take this out of the hoop and we're going to trim. The first thing I'm going to do is separate these. I've got them all separated. Grab one to start with. You want to trim everything, and it says to trim 1/4 inch away. Pinky shears are great because they have built-in notches. As you're trimming, you get the nice notches right there from your pinky shears. Then you can flip it right side out. If you're using a rotary cutter or straight scissors, it tells you to cut notches. You don't have to. If you want to cut the notches, cut the notches. If you've got pinking shears, I suggest using the pinking shears because it has the built-in notches. Try not to cut your stitch line. If you accidentally cut your stitch line, take it to your sewing machine, sew back over it, not a big deal. Go ahead and trim around all your coasters. I've got all of these trimmed. I'm also heating up my glue gun. We're going to need that to start the rope. Grab one, and you're going to flip them right side out. Just do one at a time. Flip. And I've got a clover point turner here next to me. You can use any kind of point turner you want if you need one to help turn the edges. These are actually flipping really nice, very easy. Looks really good. And then you'll want to take it to your iron. I like to press them this way. And then you'll find that you can see it's kind of tight. They always do this. So I usually pull and I press it. And then if you can pull the bottom up a little bit too and press it, and that'll help make it flat. These came out great. They pressed nice and flat. I just flipped them to the back, really hot iron, pressed it, and I have a couple of clappers, and I piled 2 on top, and I just let them sit for a few minutes. They flattened out really nice. Let's look at the measurement. Remember, we shrank our file. It's about 4.5 inches, about 4.5 inch circle. So if you've got a mug, this will fit a mug. If you want to stop here, you could stop here. This could be your coaster. You could put a piece of chenille around it or pom-poms around it, but we're going to wrap it with some Kimberbell project rope. When we start wrapping our rope, we're going to flip it to the back, and we're going to tuck this under and glue it, and I'll go through this step by step. This is why it was important to lay down the back pieces a certain way, because we're going to be sitting at our sewing machine and feeding this under the presser foot. This gets it going in the right direction. All I want to do right now is figure out how much rope I think I'm going to need for each coaster. So I'm going to tuck this under about 1 inch. I think I want it to wrap twice. So we're just going to wrap it around twice. And this does not have to be perfect. This is completely not scientific. And the start is here. So there's 2. And then I'm going to finish it with a loop. So I'm going to leave some extra for the loop. This is more than enough. I'm going to cut my rope to this measurement. Let me measure it and see what I came up with. It was about 37-ish inches, so I just cut 40 because it was easy to fold it in half, measure 20 inches, and cut. I'm going to cut myself 4 lengths of rope. I've got everything cut. Another thing you can do is if you don't want to cut it, you can do one at a time and just wrap it and sew, and then when you get to the end and you know exactly how much you need, you can trim it. But since we're going to start with using the glue gun, I wanted to glue all 4 of these first, have them ready to go, and then go to the sewing machine and start on all of them. Going to take your coaster, flip it to the back. Your rope is going on this side, so it's your left. Now, if you look in the instructions for the Happy Place Embroidery Project, it shows you how to peel back the outside, cut a little of the outside off, add some fray check. I never do that. I just squish it. It will get nice and flat. It's a good product. It flattens out really easily. You want it flat underneath like that. You want about 1 inch of rope. And then we're going to add some hot glue to that to hold it in place. I'm going to put on a couple of silicone finger covers. I have a really hot glue gun. This is a Surebonder high temperature glue gun. I've got my rope tucked in about 1 inch underneath, pretty well squished. Just add some glue. And I'm going to push it as far over to the side as I can get it. And if there's some glue visible, I really don't care. It's the bottom of a coaster. Get it as far over as possible and then flatten it too. So I'm just pushing down and pushing it to the side. Remember, this is going to be the bottom of the coaster, so that's why you want it as flat as possible, so when you set it down it's not wobbling. It'll be fine. It's a nice big coaster. This is going to fit like a really big mug. Be great. Do that for all 4. We're going to attach our rope. You need a machine that has a zigzag stitch. This is a Juki QVP. I'm going to be working with blue thread and then pink thread. This is Aurifil color 2805 on my machine, and then this is 2423 in case anybody's wondering. I made myself a little cheat sheet with some of the sizes of my zigzag stitching. I just did these 2 because I was looking at these and I want to make sure that I'm going to really see the thread. I'm using the thread as an accent in this project. I actually like the 7 by 1.4. You have to make sure your zigzag is going to be wide enough to catch both pieces of rope. So if you make something like this, then you can grab your rope. We've got our Kimberbell project rope. Put 2 pieces next to each other. You've got your little sheet here. Let's look at this one, 5 by 2. You can fold it and then hold it up to the rope. That is barely wide enough to catch between both strands of rope. I make rope projects with different kinds of rope. Some of the rope is smaller, so that would work for this. But for the project rope, I would go wider. I would probably use this one here. This is 6.4. I've used that before. That's wide enough to catch both, but I want my thread to really stand out on this. So I made a 7 by 1.4 and a 7 by 2. And you can fold them in half and then line them up and get an idea of what it's going to look like. I'm going to use the 7 by 1.4 today. I really want to see the rope. It's going to be part of the design for these coasters. Here's how you adjust that on my machine. Number 4 is the zigzag, and I want 7. You just turn the little knob, and as I turn it, I can see my needle moving over. 7 is as wide as it goes, and the 1.4 is already set. That's what I want to use. You want to make sure you've got a foot on your machine that works for a zigzag stitch. I've got mine all set. I'm dialed into that 7 by 1.4. You've got your coaster. This is why it was important to make sure we had everything correct on the back, because now we're going to be going like this around. If you put the pieces backwards, your rope would be coming out of this side, which on a coaster you could still work with, but if you're building a rope bowl, it's got to come out this side to start. You want it designed side up. Here's where it's coming out the back. You're going to have to squish it, and you'll probably have to lift your foot a little bit extra. If your machine has a speed control like mine does, I'm going to slow it down. Put it on, it's got rabbit and turtle. I put it on turtle to start just to make sure that I don't accidentally go too fast. What I like to do is use this little notch right in the middle of my foot. You may or may not have one. You might just want to look at the middle of your foot. And I'm going to be trying to keep that on the seam as we go. So the first thing I need to do is push this back a little bit more. I can tell I'm not going to catch the rope. It's not far enough under the presser foot. That looks good. I'm going to hand crank my needle. I'm just missing the rope, but that's okay. I'm going to hand crank it. Again, it's catching on my coaster. And I'm going to hand crank it again. and it's catching on my rope. This is a big, wide stitch. You're going to see the blue thread on the coaster and on the rope. If you don't want to see your thread and you just want to hold everything together, you pick a matching thread and a smaller width stitch. I'm actually going to hand crank the first couple and just make sure it looks how I want it to look. Do a couple more. That looks good. We're going to go ahead and start, and as you're working, you'll just slowly turn it as you go. We're going to go really slow. I'll do some of this in real time. Let's go ahead and stitch. And what I'm doing is I'm actually watching this center part of the presser foot. I'm not watching my needle. I'm watching to make sure that where the coaster meets the rope is staying centered. That's looking good. I can see it coming out the back. I really like that I can see the thread. I'm going to go ahead and speed up my machine. I'm going to go a little faster. We're going to go all the way around, and then I'll slow down again when we get to the point where it meets, and I'll show you how to adjust for that. Since we're making coasters, there's no lifting. Like when you make a rope bowl, this stays flat. You might have noticed as I'm going that this hand, my right hand, doesn't move very much. I just kind of hold it here to make sure that that rope is being pressed against the coaster. We're coming around to the beginning. You'll start to feel this here because the rope is tucked under. Slow down and take your time. Keep it centered, and you're going to work toward where they join and then try and keep going. Let's go around a little bit more. We're coming up on the join right here. I like to just push this down, push this in. You'll see you've got the fabric, a piece of rope, and another piece of rope coming in. Watch your seam, keep it centered. I've got all three things meeting right now. I'm just going to go slow. And then you'll adjust because now you want this part here to be centered. Just turn it a little bit. And you're going to keep going around. Now I'm going to go a little further and show you something. Right here. See how I've got a little gap here in my stitching? I did that in a couple of spots. That's because I'm adjusting as I'm going. Let's go around and look at the decorative stitch. It looks really good. There's another little gap right there. And I think I've got another one around here somewhere. So you can see it's not perfect. There's another one up here at the top. But that's okay. This is going to look really pretty. Let's go around again. And part of the reason for the gaps in stitching like that are just adjusting, making the machine go faster and slower, stopping, starting, that kind of thing. It's never going to be 100% perfect, so don't worry about it. It's a handmade product. It's unique. We're going to go all the way around till we get back to the starting point again. I can see my starting point coming, and how I'm going to end these was I was going to put a little loop on it. So I don't want to go around a third time. It's going to need to stop, and I'm going to have to tuck the rope under. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can loop it on the outside, you can loop it on the inside, but I'm not planning on putting a tag on it. So I want to loop it on the inside. Just going to kind of fold it, just looking at it and eyeballing it, to be honest with you, and I'm going to cut it. Right there. If you want, you could put some fray check on that. I'm just going to squish it in and go around and see what happens. So as I get closer to this, I'm really going to have to squish it tight. Here we go. I'm actually going to lift and kind of tuck a little bit underneath. I think I may tuck the whole end underneath. Let's see how that looks. Oh, that looks good. There's a little bulk there because that's where we started, but if you tuck it underneath, it hides that part that frays. I like that. Let's go forward. Now I've got this piece of rope, and the rope here. I'm going to try to sort of center everything and see if I can catch everything under the zigzag. Hold it together really tight, get it all nice and squishy. This is working really well. I've got that nice wide zigzag. It's actually going to straddle from this piece of rope to this piece of rope, and because I squished part of that underneath, it's getting sandwiched in the middle. What I'm going to do is go forward a little bit more and then go backwards. That looks good. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to cut my thread. Let's see what it looks like. Here's the back side. See how I pulled that under and all I did was squish it? I may put some fray check on that just to keep this from fuzzing, but it lays nice and flat. That's one advantage to this Kimberbell project rope, is it has the inner core and the outer kind of like a casing, so you can sort of peel it back and lay it flat. I love the way the colored thread looks. It really adds to the design. Look at that. It almost makes it look like it's blue rope. Really like it. Really pleased with that. If you don't like seeing all the joins, you can put a leather tag over it. One of my rope bowl videos shows how to do a tag. You could also fold a piece of fabric. Here's a piece of scrap fabric. I know it's a 2.5 inch piece of fabric because it was probably cut off from some binding. You could do something like this, folding it in, folding the end under so you get a clean edge, like this, and like that. And then as you're coming around, you could stitch over it, or you could fold it and you can glue it. You can just glue this into place if you like the way that that looks. I don't mind that I see the rope. I like it just like this. I'm going to make one more blue and 2 pink, and then we'll come back and see what they look like. I've got all 4 of my coasters stacked right here. Notice how it's the same size? All my loops stacked on top of each other really nice. These came out very consistent. When I made the cut for the first piece, I saved that cut off. So as I went, I cut the same amount off. That's how you can help keep your coaster a consistent size. If you get to the end, however you're doing your finishing, and you're cutting something off, if you've pre-measured your rope like I did, you can cut the same amount off each piece, and then you know they're all going to turn out fairly close to the same. Let's get a look at each of these coasters. I made 2 with the blue thread. Love it. Aren't they pretty? It really makes the blue on the bird stand out. It coordinates really nicely. Let's look at the pink ones. Here's the pink. This one's a little more subtle. I picked a light pink thread. That's what I happen to have. And you have the light pink flowers. You could also do a dark pink. You could do one of the greens if you want to use the same thread. You could even stitch with the same embroidery thread on your sewing machine. This one is a nice light pale pink. Let's take a final measurement of these. They're about 5.5 inches around. That'll fit a really nice big coffee mug. I have a bottle of water in here. Here's for reference, a generic bottle of water. That's what that looks like. Plenty big enough for a bottle of water. I've got a big cup in here. I've got my big Tervis cup with all the dogs on it. Plenty big enough. Easily could fit a nice big coffee mug on there. I hope you've enjoyed making a set of rope coasters with me. These designs are from the Happy Place Embroidery Projects. I use Kimberbell project rope. A set of 4 makes a wonderful gift. You could stack them up, tie them with a nice decorative ribbon, and you're ready to gift. Today we worked with an accent color thread, which was a lot of fun. You can also do fabric wrap. I've got a video I'll link below showing how to do fabric wrap rope bowls. Please leave any comments or questions below the video. I'm also going to link my new Facebook group. Feel free to join. You have to answer one security question that helps keep out the spam. Please like, subscribe, and share my YouTube channel with your friends. I'll be bringing you plenty of more Kimberbell. I'm working on the Feeling Festive Bella box. Our next project is the Snow Place tiling scene. I've got another perfectly pieced project coming up, the Let It Snow pillow and the Sea Otter rice warmer. Thank you again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed making these coasters. See you next time.